Well, its implementation is very difficult for most countries around the globe. Not even in many European countries, we see that many countries lack relevant legislations. In Asia, there are only 3 to 4 countries that actually have a law that's dedicated that criminalizes torture. Some have some sort of a provision in their criminal code, but implementation is difficult for all countries. And of course, a law is very important, but this is not enough. What's also really important is accountability. There's no way around accountability. A law is important, but laws also need to be implemented. Perpetrators need to be held accountable. They need to be punished. There needs to be investigations, and victims need to be able to get remedies. Well, a lot of countries ratify conventions before they have relevant laws, which is of course totally fine. One can sign and ratify a convention and then follow through with legislation. It is well, for most countries, it is difficult to enact laws because it concerns the police. It concerns potentially also the military and other government bodies. And many countries have difficulties in enacting laws that limits police powers, because what we're seeing, there's really an increase in countries using the police to strengthen their power. Governments do not see the police as service providers. The police themselves don't see themselves as service providers. The community doesn't see the police as service providers. They're more seen as an enemy. And we also see in many countries in the region that there's a militarization of the police. It's not rare nowadays that police wear camouflage and that they use military type of weaponry in, for instance, crowd control during demonstrations. So many, especially authoritarian regimes, use their police as a tool to stay in power. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, I wanted to refer to your first point. You're absolutely right. What I've said also applies to many democratic countries. Even in Europe, we see this. And when I said the use of military type of weapons and crowd controls, we've seen this a lot in Europe and also Latin America, the US. There seems to be a democratic crisis generally around the globe. I know the right to fair elections, freedom of the press, rule of law, they're deteriorating in many countries, including in Asia. And activists and human rights defenders who criticize the government, who speak out against torture, they're threatened, they're killed, they're detained. In many countries, the separation of power only exists on paper. Even in stable democracies, as you said, we see that the executive severely limits important checks and balances, and this of course inevitably comes with the limitation of human rights for the people. And this also means that human rights treaties, including the Convention Against Torture, are not properly implemented. And you're also right that countries have where terrorism is a real problem, those countries also have a hard time implementing international conventions, Convention Against Torture, and enacting relevant laws.